Welcome back to the Lineout Lab. My name is Peter O'Donnell. In this video, we're going to look at playing off line-out ball one at the front. Often there can be many discussions around why it's very difficult to do so. So I want to just plant a few seeds as to why it's maybe not as bad as we think. But before getting into it, if you're new to the channel, please click that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen where you get access to loads of additional content from me. Please also like and share the video to help the discussion grow. Thank you. So the first clip I'm going to show you is from the Leinster Connacht game before Christmas. And what we see a 96 setup with the 9 at the front. And he is ultimately going to make the pass to the first receiver or to a 10. And they're going to do a nice logical play involving the blindside wing and ultimately results in a try. But it doesn't always work out like this. But as we play through, let's just pay attention to what they do and where they win the ball. So they win the front, and then with a little bit of a breakout, they get the ball to 9's hands. And that's the key thing that I want to show is often when you're playing off line-out ball that's one at the back, you probably have the 9 delivering the ball from the same position. Now, granted, you have increased line speed. So as we pause it here, or as we slow it down, I should say, Leinster sort of win the ball at the front, +1 goes into rip. Now, look where 9 goes and where he is. Now, if that ball, right, was won at the back of the line-out, or middle back of the lineout, which is utopia, 7-man lineouts, ball 1 at the back, you're probably going to have a jumper catching it here, and by the time he delivers it to 9 and 9 catches it, he's almost going to be in the exact same position. So if a jumper was winning the ball somewhere in this zone here, middle of the back, you'd be delivering to 9 in almost the same position. So granted, the big difference on this is that you have increased line speed coming from the defence. So you are going to be under a bit more pressure. But the way the attacks are now is that they're often conditioned to play off defences that are rushing you and open your face. So there's nothing too different. If anything, it makes these lovely little shoulder balls, which we played on, it makes these lovely little shoulder balls a great option, or little blocker lines. So as they press and put pressure on, it really stretches the defenders. So Leinster do a really good job of actually scoring, which doesn't happen every single time. But I guess what it shows is that it is possible, which is the key thing. You can get line breaks and tries. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but it is to show you not all is not lost just because you can't win the ball at the back of the lineout. Now, I'm going to show you here is, I haven't gone into too detail on the setup. So I've just done a standard 6-man. I haven't done any 96s or 95s or any +1 sort of stuff. But generally speaking, most teams off lineouts, they do try and get into the seam, and that or not all the time, but like that can be you might get a lot of really good purchase from attacking the seam. And if they're not going after the seam, well then they're probably looking to punch holes somewhere in the middle and maybe attack either side of the second defender, and to punch and be direct, like we just saw there with the Leinster one. They were a little bit wider maybe than the seam. So that's what we see a lot of with a lot of lineouts, whether it be 4, 5, 6s, 7s, whatever it is, or even 8s. With backs in the lineout, that we might look to try and get there, whether it be off first phase or second phase. So with a lot of lineouts these days, it's actually quite difficult to go wide anyway. So a couple of things that I find quite interesting when people say, you can't get to the back of the lineout. When do we actually need it? And it's the last point, which I'll come to in a second, but you can still do your rewinds. You can still punch and play the same way. You can, exits, it doesn't really matter if you're exiting. Seam, you can still get to the seam. Even if you win the ball at the front. And look, I appreciate it can be harder to go wide, okay? It can be harder to go wide, but often, even if you win the ball at the back of the lineout, how many teams go wide these days anyway? Not often. Now, that's not an excuse to say it doesn't really matter. It's just something to bear in mind that you can actually still do an awful lot by winning the ball at the front of the lineout. And now I'm going to show you a couple of clips from the Irish game. Straight from the word go, this is actually their first lineout, which again was quite interesting. What I really liked about Ireland was that in this game is that they had a lot of speed. I felt their movement to get in position was quite good. And here is actually a great example. I played on is just how how Ireland actually look to use the fact that they've won the ball at the front and invite the defence onto them, now, especially because it's early on in the game. If we look at it, we can see there's great bit of space, bit of chip space in here, which, okay, they don't get it the first time, but they get the ball back and they're then able to apply a bit of pressure. So I thought that was quite a smart way from Ireland to start. So again, a nice little add-on or a nice little layer on from win the ball at the front. You still have other options that you can look to exploit. Okay, so here's an 8-man lineout, and what you notice is you have a back at the front and a back at the back. And You have +1 here, so it's nice little play. And again, what's good about this is they win the ball at the front, and then they do a little bit of a breakouty type play where they're looking to just be really direct, get around the corner and play hard, and then come back on the next phase. So again, inside the red zone, and we're not quite the red zone, but certainly in this area of the pitch, inside the 22, it's going to be really hard to go wide. So you have good options, good opportunities to put teams under pressure. A little bit of variation as well, which I like to see. And then I'm going to play through the rewind play where they scored with Tyke Byrne. So I really like this play. I thought it was really smart. And there's a few things that I quite like about this. So we'll notice is from a lineup perspective, I really like this walk and then the pause and then the acceleration once the front man gets to the lineout. And then they move quickly into a squash, back to equal spaces, and then they go back to the front. So it's really crisp and clean and quick. They set themselves up, and then they come back, they come back on a rewind off that first phase, and a nice little bit of intricacy around where James Lowe is hiding behind the first receiver on the blind side. So what I really like about this, or what I really want you to bear in mind about this, is it's actually the space that they have. And I think often, if we see this here, if you look at where Ireland are, they're in the middle of the pitch, and a lot of times when they're doing rewinds, most teams use the first post as a bit of a guideline, that they don't really want to go beyond the first post, which I myself am a fan of, and like a lot of coaches before me and for many years I would have done something similar if they're come back blind. But what's really good about this, okay, is that they're actually the defence are going to be stretched a bit more to cover. So Ireland would have done their homework and seen how many defenders actually fold around the corner from a midfield hit, and that's where they catch them short. So as we look at here and we pause, what you'll notice is this: you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 with a winger with a 9 in behind, holding blind. But I think what's interesting about this is that the defence have to kind of spread themselves out. They can't get too narrow. So if they spread themselves too narrow, there's potentially space, on the edge. And if they go too thin and a bit too skinny, well then obviously, they would get too skinny and they could be beaten on the edge. So they have to be conscious of their spacings. So I really like the way Ireland have kind of set this up, and it's going to be hard for them to go wide. They potentially could, but it's really about being direct. And as we play it on, we'll see. It's a nice little bit of movement. But if you're doing your numbers going back at the start, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, in theory, they shouldn't really be scoring, but obviously your 9 becomes an extra attacker, which just invites that little bit of pressure and creates that hole, or helps create that hole, I should say, for James Lowe to go through. So in a 6v5, the defence really shouldn't be getting beaten through the middle, to be honest with you. So in fairness, Ireland deserve a lot of credit, I think, for the way they've worked it. But I think what creates this, though, is the fact that it's not that tight. It's not, if you look at the post here, the ruck is in the middle of the pitch. A lot of teams will be thinking, okay, they've only gotten here, so they've got to be conscious of the blind side. Because it's a bit more, it actually puts them under a little bit of pressure. So I think it was really well worked, and as I say, something that was a little bit different in terms of the intricacies around that movement. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you liking, subscribing, sharing. The big thing on my channel really is, or started growing or doing my videos years ago, is that I wanted to try and invoke thought and discussion and grow the community for people who are interested in the lineout in particular. And that's something I'm really passionate about. And I love connecting with coaches from all over the world at all sorts of levels. I love hearing how your lineout and your throwing is getting on. Respectively, even just general rugby chat. So I really appreciate if you could like, subscribe, share, and help the discussion grow, as I always say. So thanks so much.